Some said AI is already created. AI creativity already exists, it's here. Or is it? What is it actually? Generative AI models today can create films, music, stories. AI can also play chess and Go with creative moves. The general public thinks these AI systems' outputs are creative. But philosophers and practitioners are skeptical and say, are they? Or are they just mimicking or copy and pasting? When we want to dissect an idea, we go to philosophy. What exactly is AI creativity? The philosophy department likes to break down a concept into components and to give it an explicit definition. Here's where Professor Nate Chardin's talk on commanding creativity comes in. In short, creativity seems to be a function of three variables or three components: novelty, value, and something fuzzy we call agency or authenticity or intent. Okay, let's break it down one by one. The first component, novelty, means originality. It's how AI or humans can come up with totally new, unthought of ideas. It requires divergent thinking if we use the double diamond framework. And when we look at AI today, it does a pretty good job at discovering or capturing inspirational seeds, and also to reframe and combine different seeds together in a new way if you do your prompt engineering carefully enough. But there's also a nuance to it. A recent study suggested that generative AI can improve individual creativity, namely the novelty of the ideas. It can help solve the writer's block. But as a society, if everyone uses generative AI, we are all inspired to make the same output. So it increases individual originality, but in a way it decreases the collective originality. So novelty, 50-50. Second, value. So different schools would call this component differently. And the word value includes many sub-values like aesthetic value, economic value. Some would call this task appropriateness, or usefulness, or relevance. Back in the school of advertising creativity, we often use a rubric of relevance, or how well does this idea answer to the brief, or how well does this idea resonate with the target audience, or the brand tone and voice. Everything has to be useful or relevant, or else it's just original for originality's sake, instead of being useful or providing value. This value aspect or relevance aspect requires convergent thinking, again in the double diamond framework. With careful prompt engineering, sometimes generative AI can make sense or reframe an idea to connect back to the brief or back to the original prompt. So AI today is capable of creating novel and valuable content to some degree. Probably not A+, but B-, something like that. With careful prompt engineering, you can establish new and meaningful relationships between unrelated things in a manner that is okay, is relevant, believable, and in debatable good taste. Some online influencers also try to use different chain of thought prompting techniques to replicate the internal cognitive process of a creative mind, trying to replicate the different loops of divergence and convergence thinking with expansive prompt chaining. So it's feasible, technically, for the first two components, novelty and value. But what about the third one, agency? For this one, it might require more in-depth study, but to my shallow understanding, it's related or it consists of idea of intentionality or control or authenticity. People across different talks use different words that actually link back to this idea. Some call it the mind and the heart, or a point of view, or human touch, or the soul of creativity. they tend to describe it as the driving force of the many micro decisions within the creative process, the why and how a particular creative mind would approach a problem that is not totally out of random, but with intentional choices. Creators' personality or their artistic vision only emerges because they are embedded in the society and the culture that they live in. It's their upbringing, their education, their industry experience, and their lived sensory experience that formed their unique personality. And all this paved way to having strong intentionality or control or agency to the creative work. But the thing is that if you look at a lot of human commercial work nowadays, do they really have a point of view? In the entertainment and cultural industry, art and creativity are often commoditized and are in service of the capital. Creative work becomes a job. Think of the content farm or the IP that make Netflix series. It's all a reboot or a remix in a factory line. So, in a way, sometimes human creations doesn't have strong intentionality, control, or agency. It doesn't have a point of view, a human touch. Not only that human could be like a machine, but also agency could possibly be delegated or co-owned with a third entity, be it a human, collaborator, or a machine. This is also a popular narrative proclaimed by many AI artists or creatives or designers that uses AI in the conferences. They might call it co-creativity, co-agency, mixed initiative, basically similar idea. And in the symposium, there are several professors that describe different possibility or different mode of co-creation. The first one, the AI is an extension of human. AI is just a tool to enhance human creativity and to execute the human vision. This is by far the most popular narrative on social media, where they try to calm down the anxiety or to promote the usage of AI. The second possible mode of this AI relationship is human as an extension of the AI, instead of the opposite. So, human becomes just a tool to give prompt to the AI, and AI automates everything. Human becomes the fallback when AI fails to comprehend or doesn't work. AI takes the driver's seat instead of the human. It's an interesting way of putting it, where in fact maybe many AI artists are already doing that without knowing it. The last one is a shared symbiotic control, or some might like to call it a cyborg way. It's like swinging between the first mode and the second mode, like playing ping pong, where both would take the driver's seats whenever it fits, like jazz improv duo, where sometimes the saxophone takes the lead, sometimes the cello takes the lead. And speaking of music, there's one idea that was mentioned in the symposium, that AI should be like or should feels like a musical instrument, where the player or the performer has a tactile and physical, intimate relationship with it. The human doesn't only execute musical notes with the instrument, but instrument would feed back to the human player. Both will be in touch and in sync. And it seems to be the ideal outcome. So is AI just a tool for humans? Or are humans becoming more like a tool for AI? Or is AI like a musical instrument? Or a thinking partner? There are so many roles and names that we're trying to put AI into, because we're still understanding what's AI role in our creative processes and in our creative career. Many practitioners treat AI as a tool that they can use to optimize the pipeline, to increase efficiency, and in service to delivering an experience, an emotion, or a story. If they are just a tool without a soul, then naturally we don't need to worry about them replacing human. it's reassuring to be told that they are just a tool. Let's go back to the music metaphor. When you look at prompt engineering in generative AI, in a way, prompts are just like music sheets, and AI is the performer just to execute the note in an expected way. Even though LLM are generally stochastic or probabilistic, but if you use it long enough, they tend to spit out the similar stuff, if you understand its properties intimately. Asking an AI to perform music is just like listening to a pre-recorded track. It's difficult to imagine them to be like a composer or a performer, like Glenn Gould, who interpret the musical material and concepts in a way that breaks convention and feels personal to the artist himself. If you have studied Glenn Gould music, you will know that it's a very complex cognitive process of encoding culture, abstracting and representing those musical concepts in a new way, which could be too complex for current AI models. But what if we break out the mindset of AI is just a tool? What if we imagine them as a tactile musical instrument with shared symbiotic control? Then it introduces some criteria of a better creative AI inspired by musical instruments. What should be the traits of the AI systems that can elicit more authentic or intentional creativity, or that is more suited for AI-human symbiosis? If we borrow concepts from the musical instrument metaphor, it means that the interaction should be tactile and embodied into a physical form, where our hands, our ears, our eyes can feel it, can sense it. The instrument should also be sensitive to minor adjustments and inputs. The feedback should be real-time to the artist, so that he or she can keep in the creative flow state and have an intuitive sense of artistic control. There are many fun experiments online that tries to replicate this. We're creating radio knobs that connects to some AI model's parameters or prompts. And lastly, some would view AI not as a tool nor as a symbiotic control musical instrument, but as a design material. It's not only how we want to use a material, but also how the material wants to be used. A creator would need to understand the material, the medium well enough to build a tacit knowledge or implicit knowledge of its capabilities and limitations. Just like wood or plastic as a design material. If you design a chair or a table, it's best for you to first bend the material, burn it, break it, so that you really understand it, and invent new ways to use that material that best fit for the brief, or for the users, or for the artistic vision. This perspective seems to be the more practical narrative to understand AI's role in the creative process, and is the one that sits well to me.